This conference will now be recorded.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes. I
Okay,
can.
thank you all. Yeah, thank you all for joining today. Appreciate you all signing on. We have a bunch of topics, and I wanted to see if my guest speakers were on the line. So I'm looking for Katie and Phil.
I'm here. This is Katie.
Great, awesome. There you go. Okay, nice of you. Okay, so I do have some general topics to go through before we have Katie and Phil present to us. The first one is a tech talk series that Michael Schultz sent out yesterday. And thank you, Michael, for sending the details for that because I did not have that. So there will be an OCP sustainability seminar hosted at the Alliance Partner Tech Symposium event. Either present the status of ongoing sub-projects or any new topics that anybody would like to present at that conference. The date is July 25th, and the time is 9 to 5. It would be hybrid, so in person or online. It's free to attend. You'll just have to pay for your room and board. And the location is in Oregon. We are looking for speakers, so if you are interested, please reach out to Callie or Dirk. And then there's a few links, and I'll paste the meeting notes link in our chat so you all have access to it. So please, if you are interested, reach out to those folks. You know, for some of our work streams that we have ongoing, feel free to submit or speak about an update on what we're doing, what we're planning on doing, and what we aim to get out of it. So looking forward to seeing what some of those topics are going to be. The second thing, does someone have a question on that?
This is the event. This is the event that we talked about already, right? It was supposed to be the 24th.
That's correct. Yeah, I finally got the correct details.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to also highlight the group IO page. Please go to that IO page if you need to send a message to this group. Please subscribe to the page. Please subscribe to the calendars. All of the calendar events are on that page. It's a little difficult to get updates, so when you do get an update, please click on that update that you got and save it to your calendar, because if you don't, then it doesn't override the previous calendar invite that you've received from that IO page. So please be sure to do that.
Can you share this link for this document? I have it somewhere, but I cannot find it.
Yeah, I shared it in the chat, Cosimo. Can you?
You shared it already? Sorry.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake. Sorry.
Okay. Also, there was a call for papers for the OCP Global Summit. I've spoken to a few of you already, so Aaron has already provided his abstract. Robert, you will be providing an abstract for your paper as well. And then Stephen, if I know we talked about this yesterday, and when you are ready, it would be great if we could get like 3 papers coming out of this group to present at the global conference later on. So if there's any, great. If there's anybody else,
I'll have that over to you soon, Priya. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. If there's anybody else interested in presenting something, please be sure to go ahead and submit your suggestion or your abstract.
You want to hit reuse presentation?
Hey, if you have one, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to duplicate presentations, of course. So let's maybe talk about offline.
Yeah. We can see what we want to do. So we have set up the meeting times for the work streams. All of these meeting times are on the calendar. Please go and look at the calendar, subscribe to the meetings you want to. The other meetings, all of these meetings are open. Please feel free to invite others that are interested to subscribe to these. and it's open for participation as well. So if anybody's interested in participating, all they have to do is join the meeting and participate. So please feel free to share those links. I wanted to go through a quick update on work streams, not more than 1 or 2 minutes each. So Aaron, why don't we start off with you?
Sure. So like you said, Priya, right now the thing that I've been focusing on is starting a paper looking at water, heat, and energy. Kind of put the paper on pause to do the speaker proposal for the OCP Global Summit. So that's in there. I saw that Priya, you had some comments on it, so thank you for doing that. Obviously, anyone else who wants to be involved with the work stream, by all means, please hop on. You're welcome to join. And we're down to what about? I think it's the 16th. I want to say is when the speaker proposals are due. Is that right?
I think it's the end of June. Is that right, Rob?
No, speaker proposals are due June 16th.
June 16th. Okay.
So yeah, there's not a ton of time until that's due. So if you want to join, I appreciate you doing it sooner rather than later. And I can, what I'll do over the next few minutes here is I can put the link up to the document so you can take a look at it if you want to be involved. So I mean, other than that, spending a little bit of time formulating this document. The idea is looking at the interplay between water, carbon, waste heat reuse, energy consumption, looking at some basic metrics. We try not to overlap too much with the metrics team. So we're looking at kind of generic things like PUE, WUE, CUE, things along those lines.
Thanks, Aaron. Robert, did you want to give a quick update?
Yeah, hi. You hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we're just had our first meeting yesterday. It was good, very active. Not a big crew, but so if you all want to participate, that'd be great. This was a reschedule. So I think we have one more call we'll do towards the end of June, and then July, and then we'll also be part of the workshop. But the goal is to have at least a draft of a paper for the global summit. So I'm going to put in a proposal, knowing that we're going to do good work between now and October. So,
and just a quick note on that, Rob, we've just recruited 2 new members today, Istvan from the Borealis data center and also Christoph Schreit from Scale Up. So this was Mark's suggestion. So, and they're happy to join next time.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm going to, through the group, I'm going to send out a little summary and some of the links that were shared during the call yesterday. So hopefully today, I think you'll get an email via Groups IO.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Stephen, did you want to provide an update on construction?
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, we have been unable to hold a call yet at this time due to some scheduling conflicts and everyone not getting updates from when the meetings were going to be moved. So that being said, if anyone on the call is interested in joining, please let me know, sign up on the calendars or reach out to me. I will pop my work email into the chat here in a minute, but our paper is going to focus around construction emissions, what to consider for construction material, and we are doing a focus on the 3 main construction materials that are used for data center infrastructure. So we're focusing on concrete, steel, and wood. As majority of the hyperscalers, that's what they are using now. So we're looking at, embodied carbon, water use, waste generation, pollution. And I'm working on, I was waiting until after this call to see if anyone else wanted to be included, but I'm likely going to set up an email thread with everyone who's involved, just so everyone can be included and stay up to date. But I'll be setting up additional calls as well to kind of get us up to speed where we need to be. Because as I mentioned, we've been unable to actually get on and host a real call up until this moment. So I've been doing some research and talking to a few people myself and putting some information together, working on the abstract to get that done. I did think it was towards the end of the month, but getting it to you by the 16th is no issue from my perspective. But if anyone on this call is interested in joining, please reach out. I will put my email in the chat here, and yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Evelyn. Mark, you had something you wanted to bring up regarding these subgroup calls that are taking place. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it explains why we don't have any sort of recordings of the metrics calls. So we've had the metric call recording done, but the other sustainability work streams we didn't have any. So yeah, those that are leading these work streams, really important to make sure that recordings are made so that we can basically share it with people that can't make the calls and yeah, so and socialize it more widely. So yeah, just to say, yeah, please record, and if there are any minutes that are taken during the different sessions, would be great to sort of get access to those as well. If you could share us a link to a shared document that's stored on the OCP Google Drive, that would be also really really helpful as well. Does everyone have the link to the GoToMeeting portal and be able to start the calls?
Yeah, I shared that with the work group lead. So Aaron, Steven, and Rob should have those links to start up the calls.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the work streams before we move on to the next topic? Okay, hearing none. Rob, you have the floor to provide us an update on the iMasons.
Yeah, thanks, Priya. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Coyle. I'm the Community Technical Program Manager for the Open Compute Project here. And part of my responsibility is coordinating some of our activities. One that is near and dear to me is sustainability. And we've been working in unofficial capacity alongside the iMasons group, if you're familiar with it. And so we're looking to put some structure around that alliance. And our first point is going to be around sustainability. There's a lot of activities that occur in OCP across the spectrum. There's a lot of activities that happen over at iMasons. But there's been some interest in making sure that we're either not duplicating work or, worst case scenario, putting out conflicting information. So the call to this group is really for any volunteers or anybody who's interested in participating in a little bit of a tiger team, if you will, to provide updates possibly from these individual work streams that are happening in DCF sustainability. This will also go to the top level sustainability project, and their next meeting is next week, I believe 1 week from today, on June 14th. So this same call out will go to that group. And really what we'd like to do is create a few milestones that we can work collectively on with the iMasons group. Some ideas have been aligning on defining metrics, maybe identifying some products to be measured, ultimately looking for a potential case study. If you're familiar with some of the activities over on the iMason side, one of the most talked about examples is this nutrition label concept around equipment and devices that go in data centers, and measuring the different aspects of it, from carbon to energy consumption, whatever that may be. But as part of the foundation, we're really just here to facilitate. All the ideas and the work are to come out of our community. So this is just a call to potentially get involved. So we'll rehash it again at the sustainability call and maybe even go a little bit deeper into some of the items. So if you can, please join us next week at the top level sustainability call as well. If you have any ideas or thoughts on this, I can drop an email in the chat here. Feel free to reach out to me directly. And that's it for me.
Hey, Rob, can you drop the top level sustainability group IO link in our notes when you get a chance?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Any questions for Rob before we move on to the next topic? Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of this collaboration. I think that's going to be really good.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah. So we do have some guest speakers today. We have Katie Pass and I think Phil Knocott. Is Phil on the line as well, Katie?
I haven't seen him join. He may have gotten tied up with another call, but I was planning on kind of leading the presentation today. So
awesome, great. Thank you for joining. So Katie is from an organization called Building Transparency, and I'll let Katie go ahead and introduce herself.
Yep. Could you give me permissions to share my screen? Looks like I can't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me do this. Stop sharing and. Okay, you should have permission.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, it looks like it needs permissions. Bear with me here. Okay, it looks like I have to restart my browser. I apologize before I can share, so I will be back just in a moment.
Okay. Okay, so let me just give the team a brief update on what Katie's going to be presenting. So she belongs to a organization called Building Transparency, and they have an EC3 database, which is essentially a database that provides embodied carbon data on various products within the built environments. So she's going to be presenting on the EC3 database and showing us what it's capable of. I believe it's open source and something that we all should have access to. Okay, so let me see. Has Katie rejoined?
While we wait, Rob Coyle, let me know if I can be of any assistance with the iMason. It's something that I've been thinking for a while.
Yeah, absolutely, Cosmo. We've even gotten unsolicited calls of, at different industry events, people raising their hand like, is OCP and iMasons working together? And and we really think that there's some unique resources that each group has that would really be better suited put together. At least that's our assumption at this point. So.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Let me try that one more time.
Rob, while we're waiting on Katie as well, have we pursued anything else with CNDCP?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, not in any formal capacity. At least I don't have any notes on it right now.
Okay.
But we
Katie,
are
What
is
organization is that, Priya?
climate
the
neutral.
climate
Oh, sorry.
the climate neutral data center packs?
Oh, yeah. If it doesn't work, Katie, maybe you can send the presentation to Priya and she can share. Is she frozen or very immersed
Katie, are
in
you still
her
there?
thought?
She has to be very concentrating very deeply.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
just in general, opportunities around alliances with organizations, I would say we have it in other areas, but the area of sustainability is quite an opportunity to make sure that we're aligned with other organizations. And so if anybody has insight or connections at any of these associations where there's opportunity to work together, please feel free to bring it to me or project leaders such as Priya or anybody in the OCP staff about steps to form those alliances.
I'm gonna ask a stupid question, but I'm known for that. The HRI and it doesn't have any specific sustainability activity, right?
HRI, what are you referring to, Cosmo?
Sorry, let's talk later. Now it's your turn.
Success.
Great. Sorry about
We
that,
just
folks. To
we
restart my
don't see
browser.
a present. Yeah, we don't see a presentation though. We just see a screen.
We're doing our job as DJs here just to fill the dead air.
Thank you. The music.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for bearing with me with the technical difficulties. My name is Katie Poss. I'm the Program Manager of Procurement and Policy here at Building Transparency. And today I've already heard the term embodied carbon on this call a couple of times, which is great. That's going to be the focus of my presentation today. So if you're not familiar with Building Transparency, we are a Washington State 501c3 nonprofit that is hyper-focused on addressing embodied carbon in the built environment. We have 3 different tools underneath the umbrella of Building Transparency. The EC3 tool, which will be the focus of today's presentation. This is the Embodied Carbon and Construction Calculator. We also have Tally LCA, which is a whole building life cycle assessment tool. This was gifted to us by Kieran Timberlake a couple of years ago. And then Tally CAT is our newest tool. CAT stands for Climate Action Tool. This is essentially a Revit plugin that allows you to export quantities directly from a Revit model into EC3. So I just want to start with some background information. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this graph many times, but it illustrates the impact that the built environment has on global greenhouse gas emissions. So between operating buildings, operational energy, heating, cooling, and powering our buildings, and then embodied carbon, which is essentially the impacts associated with manufacturing building materials and the construction process itself. Our industry contributes roughly 40% of the global greenhouse gas emissions pie. What I see when I look at this, though, is a huge opportunity for our industry through continuing to improve the operations of our buildings, optimizing the materials that we use, and making smart selections that we can have a massive impact globally. So our problem, though, is that maybe not a problem. It is job security for all of us. The global building stock is continuing to increase, and it will double in area by 2060. So the challenge that we have ahead of us is how can we keep up with this growth while also reducing the carbon footprint of our projects? So you've heard this term embodied carbon a couple of times today, but I did want to define it. It is the sum impact of all the greenhouse gas emissions attributed to materials throughout their life cycle. So this includes activities like extracting raw materials from the earth, the manufacturing process itself, the construction process, transporting materials to the job site, and even includes the maintenance, repair, or replacement of materials over the building's useful life and the end of life of that material. Is that material going to a landfill? Is it being recycled or reused in some way? All of those activities are underneath the umbrella of embodied carbon. And what we see over and over again on a typical building is that the structure and the enclosure are the primary drivers of embodied carbon, especially that upfront product stage emissions of a typical project. So there are some materials that we see project teams choose to focus their energy on because those are the materials that are going to have the biggest impact on the project. Now this is an interesting graph, and what it shows is the embodied carbon intensity per unit of material for aluminum, copper, iron, lead, steel, and concrete. And that embodied carbon intensity per unit is shown here in yellow. But in green, we see the quantity produced in metric tons. So for example, this is interesting for concrete. We hear that concrete is one of the highest carbon emitting materials. Actually, on a per unit basis, it's not, but it's the fact that we use so much concrete. As you can see here, 25 billion metric tons in 2009. So one statistic you may hear is that manufacturing cement is responsible for 8% of global carbon emissions. That is a very big percentage for one material, and it's really driven by the fact that we use so much of it. But there are other materials, especially in a data center context, things like copper wiring, that we should focus on as well. So I want to talk through, there's a lot of acronyms. I call this the ABCs of LCAs, PCRs, and EPDs. But I want to dive deeper into defining some of these terms that you'll hear me mention throughout the presentation. The first is LCA. This stands for Life Cycle Assessment, and this is essentially an approach to quantifying the environmental impacts of products or processes. You could conduct an LCA on a pencil, a hammer, a cubic yard of concrete. You can also conduct a LCA on a whole building. So this is WBLCA, Whole Building Life Cycle Assessment. This quantifies the environmental impacts of all stages of the building life cycle from cradle to grave or cradle to cradle. So our tool, Tally LCA, is a whole building life cycle assessment tool. A PCR is a product category rule. This is essentially a guidance document that provides the rules for quantifying environmental impacts for a similar grouping of products or materials. For example, there is a North American product category rule for ready-mix concrete. There's also a product category rule for insulation. So between standards such as ISO standards, including ISO 21930, and a product category rule, an LCA consultant will use these documents to prepare EPDs for materials. Now these EPDs, again, are environmental product declarations. These are essentially the public-facing document that summarizes the results of an LCA. And this is where we can see, and I'll show on the next slide, this is that document that kind of looks like a nutritional label for materials. And it discloses a lot of different environmental impacts indicators for materials, one of those being the global warming potential, or GWP. This is the indicator that accounts for the effects of greenhouse gas emissions, and it's essentially synonymous with embodied carbon. So here's what an EPD looks like. This is an EPD for steel, and a type 3 EPD is essentially a third-party verified EPD that follows the relevant ISO standards and PCR and has been third-party verified by a verifying body to confirm that it did follow those rules. Now on the right, you'll see just a snapshot of the summary of the results of the LCA, and this is a list of the different environmental impact indicators. The top one being global warming potential. So when we talk about quantifying embodied carbon, we're really looking at this GWP metric. It's not to minimize the impacts of the other indicators such as ozone depletion or acidification or smog formation. It's just that that is the metric that the industry is hyper focused on as it relates to addressing climate change. So as the old saying goes, you cannot manage what you don't measure. And if we want to focus our attention on embodied carbon because we recognize that it's important, how can we do that? So one answer is through the practice of LCA. So in an LCA, any resource inputs, waste outputs, and direct emissions are tracked for each individual part of a system for all life cycle stages. and the emissions associated with these are estimated from computational models, or they're based on actual measurements. Now, these are then translated to the various environmental impact categories that I showed you previously on the EPD. Because there can be thousands of elements and compounds related to environmental impacts tracked throughout the system, compounds that contribute to similar types of environmental damage are rolled up together in a single indicator. For example, a collection of various greenhouse gases, considering the varying levels of radiative forcing of each gas, are converted to a carbon dioxide equivalent. So when we talk about global warming potential, that's actually a metric that summarizes all of the impacts of the various compounds that are contributing to climate change, not just carbon dioxide. So here are the stages of the building life cycle. Now the A1 through A3 are the product stage emissions. A4 is transportation to the job site. A5 is related to construction and material related emissions. Collectively, the A stages are sometimes referred to as upfront carbon. Now the B stages address the use phase, the C stages are end of life, and the D stages look at benefits beyond the building's life cycle, such as reuse or recycling of materials. Now currently EC3, which I'll show you here in a minute, has the capability of quantifying product stages A1 through A5, but we are working on adding additional life cycle stages. So through this practice of life cycle assessment, we can see which life cycle stages have the most impact to the project. Now, over and over again, we see that the product stage emissions, A1 through A3, are usually the largest contribution to a project's global warming potential if we break it down by building life cycle stage. So how does this math work? We want to estimate the embodied carbon of a project. And with a couple of data points, we can actually do this pretty easily. So what you'll need are your material quantities, which you should already have at a project level from your project estimate.
Can
You
I ask you a
also,
question?
yep.
If you don't mind, if you go back one slide.
Mhm. This one?
And again, maybe I missed something here, but based on this graph, it looks like the building before it's constructed has the biggest impact.
Yes.
And I don't see any here any slides here for actually the use of the building. What in the very first slide you defined like heating and cooling and powering the building, which was a significant slice of the first graph.
Yes, this green piece is that use phase. And actually these are just related to the materials. The operational energy is not included in this graph. I should have clarified that. So this is just the contributions to the materials embodied carbon.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay.
So it would look different if operational energy were included.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Especially in a data center context.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It would be interesting to see those graphs, though, to compare the embodied carbon of the materials to operational energy of a data center.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm sorry, I can't see anyone, so if you have any questions, feel free to just interrupt me. Okay, so to estimate embodied carbon, we need material quantities for the materials you would like to quantify, the carbon intensity of each of those materials, which we can collect from an EPD, and we multiply those two metrics together to give us the estimated embodied carbon at a project level. So with material quantities and EPDs, we can essentially build a carbon estimate almost as easily as we can build a cost estimate. So just to wrap this up before we go into the EC3 tool, I just want to, as you're looking at defining what your goals are related to embodied carbon, a lot of times projects might be pursuing certain certifications such as LEED or Living Building Challenge. There may be policy compliance requirements in place such as Buy Clean California, but there's also individual owner goals and requirements, which I know Google has related to embodied carbon and sustainability. So I just want to throw that out there that each of these have different requirements. So when I talk to general contractors and project teams, one of the first things that needs to be done is to define what materials do we want to quantify and what is our goal as a starting point. So now I'll talk a little bit about the EC3 tool. I'm going to run you through a couple of screenshots and then I'll show you a quick demo. So at its core, EC3 is two things. It's essentially a free public database of environmental product declarations. It's also a building project planner, which allows us to quantify embodied carbon, again, of those product stages A1 through A5 on an individual building level. So if you have never been into the EC3 tool, you can register for a free account by going to buildingtransparency.org and clicking on register free. And then one of the things you'll see when you log into the homepage is this heat map, which shows within our database how many EPDs are there across the globe. We are constantly adding new EPDs to the database. And originally this tool started in North America, but we are rapidly expanding globally. You can also see, the count of EPDs that we have by material category. By far, we have more concrete EPDs than any other material. That's partly due to the nature of ready-mix concrete at a given batch plant. They could produce hundreds of different mix designs, which are each a unique EPD at a batch plant. So we have well over 80,000 individual EPDs for ready-mix concrete at this point in the system.
Yes.
So one of the things that you can do is just to simply go into the tool, click Find and Compare Materials, navigate to the material you'd like to search for, and see if there's an EPD for that product. When you select a product such as cast-in-place concrete, you'll see a screen like this appear. You can type in various performance specifications related to your product. You can also filter by geography if you'd like to look in a specific state to see if there are any EPDs there. You can do that, or in a different country. And here's an image of what the search results will look like. So what you'll see here is a listing of the manufacturer, the specific plant that this EPD is from, the product name, a description, a compressive strength, and then the GWP. You can also sort from lowest to highest for any of these results. You can also compare. So if you wanted to compare the range of GWP values among different manufacturers in your area, you could do that with the click of a button.
Hey, Katie?
So one of the things, yeah.
Quick question on EPDs. So are these just the ones that you currently have in your database? Are they specifically just focused on construction materials, or do you have like mechanical, electrical, plumbing components in there as well?
Yeah, we do, and I'll show you what we have currently. We are very much focused on MEP equipment right now. We partner with a lot of tech companies such as yourselves because that's such a priority. So we are working to build up those categories. We currently have things like data cabling, but there is definitely a need in the industry for more EPDs for those kinds of materials.
Okay.
It is building materials, though. We have had some people add EPDs for things like clothing or food products, and we do collect those. We just put them in another category, but primarily this is building material focused.
Okay. And then like how applicable is this globally? Like, is this just US based, or is it globally applicable?
It is globally applicable. I did a training for a group in India a couple of weeks ago, and we recently brought on a program director in Europe. So it is a global database of EPDs, and we're continuing to add more EPDs from other countries.
Okay, and just wanted to highlight to you that this is the group here is data center providers as well as vendors. Like for instance, Cosimo is from Alpha Laval. Mark is representing like Colo facility. So we have a wide range of participants here. So I think this is good marketing for this database as well.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Just to know who the audience I'm kind of speaking to. You know, this tool is used by manufacturers, obviously, who want visibility for their products in the tool, who want to add their EPDs to the system. We also work with a lot of general contractors because really this tool is useful, especially in procurement when you're deciding which material to go to. For example, should I procure insulation A versus insulation B? Which one has a lower carbon footprint? But we also work with design firms and owners. So we work with all project stakeholders, and anyone can use the tool.
Let me.
Katie, can I ask a question about the buildings in your database?
Sure.
Can I search on data centers and also co-location data centers?
So the way it works is project teams can choose to share their building publicly, but by default, the buildings are not shared with everyone. They're only visible to the person that creates them. So let me show you how that works. I'm not sure if we have any publicly shared data centers yet. So I'm just going to
So
sign
Mark,
in.
if you wanted to put in like an OCP ready data center as a case study into this database, that's something we could potentially work with EC3 to do.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that would be good. I've known of this tool for a long time, and I've looked previously to see if there were any data centers, and I couldn't find any. So, but yeah, this it's just a matter of time. We've just yeah, this is what we need to encourage. I thought at one point I saw a note that AWS had shared some data publicly, but I tried to click on the link and it didn't function. So I don't know if that actually happened or not.
Yeah, there's Amazon SJC38 phase 2. I'm not sure if this is a data center.
Right.
Looks like this might be an office building. We would absolutely love, and we have an anonymize and publish feature if you wanted to not disclose the name or location or the client, but you wanted to share the data. We very much support that. Would be happy to help you with that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Sure. Stevie Lynn, you have a question?
Yeah, hi Katie. My name's Stevie Lynn. I'm with Rox Tech, and I'm the lead for the construction emissions work stream. And of course, this is all resonating, so thank you for sharing this. It just seems great. And I just had a quick question. You showed comparing materials, like for the concrete materials on this database. Can you compare, for example, my white paper is focusing on emissions that differ between concrete, steel, and wood. And I'm wondering if I can utilize this to look at comparative versus concrete and wood, or is it just solely comparing different materials from different vendors that make the same material?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have seen people use the tool. So what you could do is you could create a new building and just within that building put in the material quantities for a specific design. Let's say it's the structural system, and you want to compare the embodied carbon intensity of a steel frame versus a concrete frame versus
Sure.
mass timber, for example. You could do that in EC3. You could also do that in Tally. I've seen more of those kind of conceptual design comparisons happen earlier in kind of SDs and DDs using the whole building LCA tool, but you can do that in EC3 as well. So the way that works is you would create an individual building project for each of those designs with the relevant material quantities, and then you can compare buildings to each other.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm happy to, I can drop in my email and, schedule like 30-minute one-on-one if there's a particular use case you'd like to explore.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Steve Lynn, can I just sort of a quick point?
Hey, there's a list of questions actually. There's a I see. I think that Astrid was ahead of me.
Oh, right, okay. Carry on. Carry on, Astrid.
No, it's fine. I just I'm aware that we'll probably take all night for the UK. I was just wondering on aggregated data, whether you've ever suggested to customers that they could publish aggregated data for a particular sector or a particular building site type? Because that might be really useful public information for how you can take, how your sector compares to other sectors, and also general advice on what's better in
Yeah,
terms of data versus other approaches.
that's a great question, and there are active efforts on that front. The Carbon Leadership Forum is launching a whole building LCA benchmarking study. So one of the things that you can do in EC3 is basically get this embodied carbon intensity per square foot metric. And essentially what they're doing is trying to create what's the range of embodied carbon intensity per square foot for a data center, for a high rise, for a healthcare facility. So that kind of data is absolutely impactful. And I know especially the real estate investing and finance sectors really want to kind of see, how is my building performing compared to similar buildings in my sector? So there's a lot of work underway on that front.
Thank you.
Sure.
Um, I work for a vendor, so we sell products, and if I use this database to determine our embodied carbon in our products, and I sell this to Google, to use the example, and Google says, no, fantastic, but we don't use EC3, we use PS2. I mean, how many of these tools are around, and how accepted is this?
That's a good question. There are a few tools out there. I think that Google is heading in the direction of using this tool.
No, I mean,
There,
I use Google as an example, but I
yeah,
mean, so is
sure.
if Google use EC3, Meta use PC2, and Amazon use TC14, and then it becomes a little of a challenge from a vendor point of view. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Um, there are other tools out there, and I think it's just a matter of doing, I guess, what the client says in that case. But we do partner with other tools. So the API for our database is open. We're a firm believer in sharing our data, and just to, with the greater, that's why we're a nonprofit. We want to basically increase lower carbon projects and building materials as much as possible and as quickly as possible. So there are other tools that actually pull our API and use our data, and we're fully supportive of that. But that's a good point. It could especially get challenging from a manufacturer or a user side to manage all these different tools.
Hey, Katie, is this something that iMasons, are you guys working very closely with the iMasons organization to standardize on the tool across the industry?
We have not that I'm aware of, worked closely with iMasons, but we do work closely with Noah Goldstein. I think he's the one who connected us for this presentation today. So we meet with him regularly and are coordinating. He's actually on our board of Building Transparency. But if there's
Okay.
a specific initiative with iMasons that you think would be beneficial for us to get tapped into, I'm happy to discuss that.
Yeah, I'll talk to Noah about that. And Rob, just for your information, this may be something we potentially want to collaborate with iMasons on, especially, for vendors like Cusimo who is looking for standardization. If we as an industry can align on a specific tool, that might be more beneficial to our vendors as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
vendors as well, because if Alpha Laval uses this and Schneider, Rob here uses another one, we are back to square one.
Yeah, and also to that point, on the whole building LCA front, there are three, at least here in the United States, major tools that are the most common: Athena's Impact Estimator, One-Click LCA, and Tally. And there have been some studies to put in the exact same building in each of those tools and compare the results, and they're wildly different. So there's a lot of work being done right now to standardize the data inputs to make it to where that comparison, even across different tools, is feasible, and it's a number you can trust. Stevie Lynn, did you have another question?
No, Katie, thank you. I'm all good.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions right now, I can just briefly, I know we've got a few minutes left, kind of show you what the building planner side of things looks like. Maybe before I do that, I'll show you the materials. I know there was a question around kind of MEP materials we have currently. We do have some electrical generation, distribution, and transmission categories. We also have floor boxes, cable trays, raceways, data cabling, and racks. And like I said, we're prioritizing the MEP categories this year. So you will see more categories released under the MEP umbrella. So if I want to quantify the embodied carbon of an individual project, this is the building planner, and it'll ask you to input some basic information about the project, such as the name, what its use is, when does the construction start, and the address. The address is especially relevant if you want to search for EPDs that are within a specific distance from your project site. For example, ready mix concrete. When I'm searching for ready mix, I want to find EPDs that are within maybe a 30-mile radius, just given the nature of ready mix trucks delivering to the job site. They're probably not going to be delivering from 100 miles away. There's also a field here where you can just put basic project notes. You can, as you can see here, the default is private. Only you, the person who creates this project, can see it currently. But if you want to share it with others within your organization or the client that you're working with, you can add their email and send them the project link so you can collaborate on the same project. Now here's where I put in the square feet, the floor area, above grade and below grade of my building. You can put in the height, how many stories it is. Just note that anything that doesn't have an asterisk is not required. It's totally optional if you want to put this level of detail in there. But down here is really where the magic happens, if you will. This is where you're going to input individual line items for each material that you want to quantify the embodied carbon of. So for example, I've manually entered concrete foundations 4,000 PSI. I put in my quantity here. So let's assume I have 1,000 cubic yards of this mix on my project. Now I'm going to delete this for the purposes of the demonstration. When I add a new element, there will be nothing here. I've just hard keyed in these words, but EC3 doesn't know what this material is yet. So what I'll do is I'll click on EPDs. I'll navigate to the material that I just entered in. In this case, it's a ready mix concrete mix. It is a 4,000 PSI mix. And let's just assume, I think I heard someone was in Atlanta. Let's see for Georgia. If there are any 4,000 PSI mixes in Georgia. And this may take a few minutes. It's sifting through all of the data in the system. Okay, so the first thing you'll see is a box plot and whisker chart just showed up on the right here. What this is showing me is the range of EPD values based on my search criteria. So for 4,000 PSI mixes in the state of Georgia, the range of global warming potential is between 100.5 and 699.9 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per cubic yard. So this is the max and the min. These are essentially the outliers. But the majority of EPDs in the system range between this 209.7 and 315.6 GWP. So if I scroll down here, I can see all of the EPDs. Again, you can sort by manufacturer. Let's assume that Thomas Concrete is the ready mix supplier that is servicing my job. And I know that it's this mix 40989-1 from the submittal process. I'm going to select this mix. And when I do that, what it's going to show me is how this particular EPD compares to the rest in the system. So what you'll see here is this GWP is actually slightly higher than the average, but it is below the 2019 CLF baseline values. If you're not familiar, the Carbon Leadership Forum has published baseline values about every other year since 2019. And this is essentially a conservative fixed baseline number that you can compare your particular EPD to see how you're performing. So in this case, our mix is below the CLF baseline, but it is slightly higher than the average of all the other EPDs in our system. So once I select the material for my project, I'm going to click Use This Collection. And then you'll see some text has appeared here. EC3 now knows that this is the EPD I've selected. And what it's doing on the back end is essentially multiplying my quantity times my GWP, as I showed you before. So I'm going to stop there since we have 2 minutes left. But if anyone is interested in learning more or wanting to go deeper into a demo, I dropped my email in the chat. I'm happy to connect.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Katie. This was really awesome. Appreciate you coming on and presenting this to us. I think you're going to get a lot of callbacks from this, and any way that we as a team can help you with the work you're doing, I think we'll be really ready to support whatever you're working on.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties.
Great,
All right.
great tool.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks. Bye.